Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train Dragon podcast. I'm your host, HC, and I'm really excited about this. With me are
Wolf.
And Haddock.
And we're here. It's here. How to Train a Dragon, the Hidden World is kinda sorta here because it hasn't premiered in America officially, but people have gotten a chance to see it, like the two good people that are with me, and also myself.
Woo.
So we said, why not? Everyone is posting their reviews on it. Why not us? We are the How to Train a Dragon podcast. Let's do this thing. How to Train a Dragon, the Hidden World. Just a quick note to new people who might be listening to this. First of all, welcome. Great to have you here. Second of all, we are going to start by, talking about our general thoughts about the movie. No spoilers. But when we start going into spoilers territory, we'll let you know so that you could leave, go watch the movie whenever you can, and then come back and listen to the spoilers. And please come back. We need the views. Anyway, Hidden World is here. Haddock, you're the guest. You want to do the honors?
Oh no, putting me on the spot right away? How dare you?
Okay, you want Wolf or I to go first?
Oh no, we're putting you on the spot.
Okay. You can put me on the spot, that's totally fine. It's not like I haven't been one of those people posting reviews online talking about my thoughts already. So they're slightly assembled. So yeah, overall, I did enjoy the movie. It was a worthy third addition to the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, and very much in line with what we would hope of a third film. Just like How to Train Your Dragon 2, it went into a new territory and new feel, while still retaining the essence of what makes How to Train Your Dragon, How to Train Your Dragon. There were some things that I specifically adored about the movie, including the animation and the character dynamics. So there were a lot of positive things to come out of it. At the same time, I'm feeling... I'm processing, and we'll get into this later in the podcast as I go through specific details. But there were certain things about the movie that I'm less sold on than I was with the first two films. This is my perspective. Lots of other people loved it, but I'll get into why I have some. I wouldn't call them reservations exactly, but processing reflections, I suppose, if that's fair.
Okay. Wolf.
I would say, overall I've enjoyed it. Overall, I can't say this is a bad film. You're definitely not going to be losing out. You're not going to be wasting your time going to see this film, and you're definitely losing out, I would say, if you decide to skip it, right? Especially if you're already, whether you're a fan or not. It's a good film overall. You're not going to be hurt by seeing it. You're not going to be wasting your time. You're going to have fun. It's going to be enjoyable. And overall, I would say this is a good ending to the trilogy. I don't think they could have done much better than this. As of right now. These thoughts could change as we get further on and I get to see it a bit more, and we finally get the digital or Blu-ray release and all of that, and I can actually spend more time watching through it slowly and all of that. Then I could come back and say it's the worst movie ever. Who knows?
Of course. So this is always the thing. I like it, but if I'll see it more, it will be the worst thing ever. Optimism, ladies and gentlemen.
See, I think I'm going to go the opposite way, where I'm going to embrace it more with a second time viewing. But opinions definitely do change from first impressions to familiarity. So that'll be interesting to see how our relationship with this movie evolves as we get used to it.
Agreed.
Okay. So me, again, I really liked it. It's a really good ending to the trilogy. Definitely a worthy addition to it. And I guess we can now officially say another one of those perfect trilogies where every movie is fantastic in its own way. And to some extent, this movie does something that a lot of third entries don't do, and honestly, I don't get why. And it's that, there's something about this movie that, kind of combines what works in the original, and because, there are the two camps that say, oh, I like the How to Train Your Dragon 1 more than 2 because it's a more personal story with Hiccup and Toothless, but there's not much world building necessarily. So, but then there are the people who like How to Train Your Dragon 2 more than 1 who say, yeah, Hiccup and Toothless are the heart, but they're not the main focus as we are building up this world and we have these epic fights and stuff. And I really think this movie managed to combine both the personal journey of Hiccup and Toothless and also the grand scale and the world building of the second one. So it's like they sat down, watched the first two movies, and said, "Okay, let's see what works and put us all together in this final film." And I think the result is really ended up being working really great. I have a few nitpicks, but the one downside I will say is that it feels a tiny bit rushed. Like maybe if it was, because I think this is shorter than 2, right? I think it's a shorter movie than How to Train Your Dragon 2.
How to Train Your Dragon 2, they were really trying to fit a decent time scale, and I think they pushed the time exactly because they realized there was a lot of material they needed to get in.
Yeah, but I think in this movie, maybe if it was, I don't want to say that, like maybe 10 minutes longer, 15 max.
I'd say 10 minutes and more focus on a climax is what I would say. Just a few more minutes on the climax, and that's really all it needed, I think.
Looking it up real quick, it looks like The Hidden World runs for an hour and 44 minutes, and How to Train Your Dragon 2 runs for an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh.
Okay, so almost the same.
Very close, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you see that 1 minute would have changed everything.
That one extra minute would have made this a 10 out of 10 movie. Because
exactly.
It failed that one, because we didn't get that one extra minute. Unfortunately, only 5 out of 10. Shame.
Well, yeah, don't you know 1 more minute of Dragon makes the entire difference. But honestly, it's not like if it was maybe, I don't want to say 10 minutes ish added to some stuff which we'll get to later, it would have been better. But as of now, really strong finish, and I really enjoyed it. I still needed to give it a bit more time to stew and sit and to watch it more, think about it more in order to say where it exactly ranks in terms of my favorite in the franchise. But yeah, definitely a strong finish.
Let's put it this way: we'd all know what that 1 extra minute could have been used for. Wink.
Sure.
Goodness.
Anyone who gets that, you're welcome for that image. Whatever image you think it might be, you're welcome.
So it's open for interpretation. Good. We're making people think here. But yeah, so we all liked it. Actually, do you guys have some sort of an idea where would you rank this in terms of your favorite movie?
Of the trilogy or of all
the
movies?
Trilogy, obviously.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, because I already know my ranking. So, this is actually my 3rd favorite. This is, I mean, it's not to be like, oh, this is my least favorite, but it's the fact that every single How to Train Your Dragon movie has a little bit of a different focus. And the first movie is very concentrated on the dual dynamic between Hiccup and his father. The second movie was more about Hiccup's relationship between his mother and his father and the ideas of coping with loss, all of which are very personal and emotionally melting to me. The themes of the hidden world weren't as resonant to me in my own life's personal journey. So that would be more of why it doesn't connect as much with me. So not to say, oh, it's, my least favorite. It's more of my emotional connection to it. I understand why I'm putting it at the number 3 spot. Then How to Train Your Dragons 1 and 2. It's always a toss-up. Yesterday, number 1 was my favorite.
So today, 2 is your favorite. Yes, I win. Okay. Wolf, do you have a placement, or do you still need to write it out?
I still think 1 stands as my personal favorite. I think, as Haddock said, like, the relationship with Hiccup and his father, that really resonated with me a lot personally, more than anything else has so far. And I still think 1, so as of right now, I still think 1 stands at the top for me as my favorite of the trilogy. After that, I think I need to give it a bit more time, but it's probably, as of right now, it's a bit of a toss-up between 2 and 3. 3 might be 2, 2 might be 3. I think if I give it more time and a few more watches, that might end up changing, but I still think 1 overall is still going to be my favorite.
Okay, again, I'll say it again. When I say that I prefer 2 to 1, it's not it's not that of a long shot. Like, both films are really good, and again, 3 is kind of one of the reasons I really need to sit down on it and think about it is because, again, all of them are pretty much on an equal level. So it is hard to say right now where it exactly ranks. But the point is, it's a really good movie. Actually, no spoilers. What were your thoughts about Grimille?
Fun villain.
Agreed. Definitely fun villain.
Yeah, I like him in the idea. Also, a lot of in the execution. Again, we'll get to this later. But there are some parts about him that again, we'll get to this later. I'll explain more in the spoilers territory. But anything else you want to say before we move on to spoilers?
I guess so. We can leave the Grimille conversation for later, because I do have pros and cons that I've thought about with him. So just wait for that then, I guess.
Okay, Wolf?
There's a question I would like to ask, but I think it would be better in the spoiler area. That way we can go into it a bit more, possibly. So I'll wait for now. So yeah, I think I'm good. Like, go check out the film.
Okay.
It's worth the time.
Okay. Yeah, so you heard these are our opinions. Go watch the movie. Strong finish. And we are starting spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Still here? Great. Hiccup dies of AIDS. There you go. The end.
Wow. Getting right into it. Okay, then.
Okay. If you've seen the movie, you know this is not true. The real spoiler is that Grimille is Viggo's dead. Okay, no, I'll stop now.
Okay. All right, so now where do we begin with the spoiler stuff? There is so much to talk about.
I will say might as well start at the beginning, because I really like how the beginning wasn't like the traditional "This is Berk" opening. We actually saw the writers doing what they do best, 3 dragons, and I do like how Hiccups' introduction in this movie, that you see him in full armor, with Inferno, Toothless coming in, and then this guy, the fire engulfs the ship, and they walk through the fire, and Hiccup kind of tries to calm that dragon capturer down, and it's again, this is this is Hiccup on the screen. That's perfect way to open this.
The thing I noticed very, very quickly that kind of stole the scene for me a bit, because I found it a little bit too funny, was, "Hi, Craig Ferguson, you're playing another character that's not Gobber. I can hear that voice."
Oh, really? Oh, really? It's him?
I didn't notice that. I recognized the voice, but I wasn't placing it.
As someone who loves Gobber, who loves this man's voice and loves to try and imitate it, poorly I might add, I noticed immediately, that sounds... Yep, there it is. There's that little thing that I can tell that when it's your voice, when you do a certain... I guess you would say... a certain voice crack that's very much his thing. You can hear it, and that's when I heard it, and yep, that's who that is. That's Craig Ferguson playing that character. I enjoyed that.
That's funny.
Yeah, and on that same scene, we have what things I really liked about this movie that I think, like in the movie specifically, if we go into Race to the Edge, then we get a lot of it there. But this is really, I think, in the movies, the first time that all the writers got like their own thing in the movie. Like we see Snotlout coming in and actually saying that his armor doesn't protect his butt from fire, which again fits kind of fits to his character. And then we see Fish Legs with the little baby, and we see Tuffnut trying to take all of Tuffnut's glory, and we see Astrid being the badass she is. Again, there's this kind of really race to the edge dynamic in the film, and it's really cool to see, honestly, because I think that was missing from the movies a bit.
Agreed. That was one of my absolute favorite things about the Hidden World is, as you brought up, we get a race to the edge sort of dynamic with the characters. And character individuality for all of the dragon riding gang and character interactions with each other is something that Race to the Edge can do very well, is because we're given more time with Snotlout and the twins and Slates. They're background characters in the movies. Whereas in the TV shows, that's where you fall in love with them. And so the fact that we were able to get both their individual essences and all of their interactions with each other as a group of friends was a delight to see in the movie. Plus, as you said, blatant references to the TV shows, Snotlout getting his butt on fire, being that ongoing gag in Riders and Defenders of Berk.
Yeah, and I also like when Astrid tells them like this is supposed to be a stealth mission, right? Yeah, they all start like this.
It did. It felt a lot more personal. It felt like these are the people who, if you've watched if you've watched the show and everything, these are the characters you've come to know and love. It felt way more personal this way. It felt like, yeah, this is a group of friends doing a thing together. That's what this feels like now. I think if we would have seen a scene like this in the second movie, with how they've characterized with how they use the characters in the second, even the first movie, it wouldn't have come across as well. And I think they needed to do that for the third film because it needed to feel like, okay, they are a group of friends by this point. It didn't inherently feel that way in the second movie, but it definitely feels that way now.
Yeah,
and I love
and
that.
I also like in that scene that like Valka is with them, but she's like standing from the side, trying as a safety net. And she has like debates with Cloudjumper, like, no, we shouldn't help them. I think they got this. And she sees Snotlout's going up. It's like, well, he screws it up, but the others are doing fine for now. Like she's standing there waiting to see if they actually got it, because she has been doing it for so long. So she is like the mentor. I like that.
That was nice.
And after do you have anything to say about that scene?
So I was very interested, going back to actually the first thing you brought up was you liked the fact that it was different from the opening This Is Berk thing. And I've seen a lot of people talking about whether or not they liked it, talking about, from an analytical perspective of how the fact that it didn't start with This Is Berk was a way to help set up the disjunct that is the premise of the entire third movie. For me, I personally missed the This Is Berk opening because it creates a sense of division between this and literally all of the other How to Train Your Dragon movies, including Gift of the Night Fury. So to make this the odd one out for me, I didn't like that. But at the same time, I loved the opening intro. I loved the dynamics of the fight. I just would have wanted the This Is Berk speech.
And although we do get it, but also a bit different.
I felt like it was an interesting idea. Like it was them trying to evolve their intros a little bit and do something a little bit different because, like HC said, we did get the This Is Berk. It's Hiccup kind of, hey, here's a tour of the island for the new dragons real quick. And this is the This Is Berk scene, except it's not a narration over a, I guess you'd say an establishing shot. It's very much just, Hiccup talking to the dragons and introducing them to Berk. I liked the idea of the evolution. Like, I think it was an interesting way to try and take and do something a little bit new with their kind of established intros, if you will. It definitely sets it apart and makes the film feel different, but I don't think it's a bad difference by any means.
And next, so we are back. We are back on Berk, which has changed drastically since we last saw it in the graphic novels. And didn't expect me to say that, did you? But yeah, we a lot more dragons, a lot more people, and again, just to bring up the animation, like this couldn't have been done like in 2010 when the first one came out, just to show how much technology has come to see all of these dragons and all of these people on screen together, and all the colors and background animation. It looks great, just wonderful.
Oh yeah, I mean, you will hear me raving throughout this entire thing about how amazing the animation is, and just, whoo, did they utilize the new technology to the best that they could do in this film.
Yeah, and so when we go back to Berk, we find out about some other plot points. Like we see that Snotlout's next target is Valka. What did you think about this? I think just because I know they're playing it for laughs, I have no real problem with it. But I think some people will actually raise an eyebrow.
I mean, they're all adults. Just pointing that out.
This is true.
Yeah, they're all adults, but there's a difference between a 22 adult, a 21 adult, and 50 adult.
I mean, hey, if that's what you like and want to go for it.
Yeah, and actually, jumping the gun a bit here, I talked to Hadak about this a bit before we started. Valka is kind of the only Snotlout love interest in the movies that actually kind of returns the affection at one point, because like Astrid goes with Hiccup, Tuffnut goes with fish legs, and then she actually tells them that he has a brain. So
I think she was just being kind, but sure.
Yeah, but for him, a small victory is a victory.
This is true.
Maybe. I think she was. You could tell she was humoring him the entire movie.
Yeah. Actually, I do like that he tells her so, Hiccup's mom, and she's like, call me Valka, and like, oh, we're on a first name basis now. Like, dude, I think the first name is the one thing you need to know if you're attempting to hit on any girl. I think.
Oh goodness.
And another thing I like is the Hobgoblin dragon, probably my new favorite dragon from the movie.
That's the very large one, right?
The small one.
That's
the Hobgobbler. Yes, the Hobgobbler.
Yeah.
Yes, the small one that becomes a recurring joke.
That was entertaining.
Yes, it was.
I love this thing. Like, I want a plushie of it.
But we did see another new dragon as well in this scene.
Yeah,
the very giant one.
Like
I think it's the Crimson Gore Cutter is what it's called.
Yeah, Fishlegs mentioned it's...
Called what now?
Moose Boy. That's what I call it.
That's a great name.
Yeah. Okay, I don't care what Fishlegs calls him in the opening. His new name is Moose Boy.
Moose the Dragon.
Yeah, Moose the Dragon. Dragon the Moose. My new OC. But so we have all of these dragons. We see how packed Berk is, and then all of a sudden, Gribble drops the ball. The ball that every fan has pretty much been dropping since day one. When are Hiccup and Astrid going to marry?
Right.
And this leads us to one of my favorite things about the movie, Tuffnut giving Hiccup dating advices. I love this. Like, this entire movie could have been Tuffnut giving Hiccup tips about how to impress Astrid and get her to marry him, and I would have been happy.
The dialogue was so raced to the edge there, like the entire conversations that Tuff had with Hiccup in all of the best ways. And yeah, I would have watched 2 hours straight of just Tuffnut and Hiccup in the woods with Tuffnut giving terrible advice.
Yeah, and I just love it. Again, and this is a bit jumping the gun, but in one of those conversations, he calls Hiccup Hickey, and like Hiccup takes like a few seconds to digest it. He goes, Hickey? Like, where the hell did you bring that up? So I love it. It's great.
It was a good dynamic, not just because of the things that Tuffnut was saying, but as you were pointing out, it's how Hiccup reacts. Where Hiccup is making sarcastic comments or just tolerating it or being like, what the heck? And that's what made the dynamic, is both of them.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a good time to mention that T.J. Miller didn't reprise Tuffnut in this movie, to those who don't know. And the reason I'm bringing this up because I think I've heard somewhere that T.J. Miller and Jay Baruchel were actually close friends in real life. And so watching this and not knowing the voice actor changed, I thought it was probably one of those sessions where they had the two actors together and kind of let them walk off each other because it really felt like it. But then when I found out that it's not T.J. Miller, so kudos to the replacement for not only sounding a lot like him, but actually, managing to carry that chemistry over.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the voice actor. There's a part of me that wonders, since Tuffnut's dialogue was so T.J. Miller-y, and, just based on how life timelines go down, I almost wonder if they recorded T.J. Miller's lines, and then they replaced the voice actor and did it over.
Most likely,
the same thing. Because
some of those lines were like, yeah, that's T.J. Miller improvising. I can tell.
Yeah,
it felt like it, anyways. Like either this guy is the best T.J. Miller impersonator when it comes to impersonating not necessarily his voice, but his
humor.
Atmosphere. Yes, his humor, his atmosphere, the atmosphere he puts off. Like either this guy, I don't know who he is exactly right offhand. Like I said, but either he's the best humor impersonator I've ever seen when it comes to T.J. Miller, or he just kind of re-recorded T.J. Miller's lines. It has to be one of those two. Either way, though, like kudos to him. I could tell it wasn't T.J. Miller, like very quickly. Like that's not his voice. That doesn't sound like him. But still, yet he gave off like, hey, this is tough. Like this is the Tuffnut I'm used to seeing, used to hearing. It doesn't sound any different. The voice might be different, but the atmosphere, the character, the humor, it all still feels the same.
And you can kind of argue that, you can kind of make the argument that he's older, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, that's one of the things is I could excuse it because it's like, Tuffnut's going to be 21, well, 20 to 21 because he's on the younger end of the group. He's, we can, excuse it for age reasons pretty easily, and the voice being slightly deeper, that works.
So after this scene, this is something I want to hear Wolf's thoughts about, because after this scene we are introduced to our new and final villain of the franchise, Grimille. And I know Wolf is really likes how villains are introduced in this franchise, and I thought he had a really good introduction. Wolf, what do you think?
I'd agree. I don't think they could have introduced him in a much better way. I think they did really well with that.
Hadak, what do you think?
I liked his introduction, but I think that his best scene came later.
If it's the one I think you're talking about, then yeah, I would agree.
I mean, do we have to talk through the entire movie in order
No,
for this? Because there's some things I want to talk about overarchingly as versus scene by scene.
We tried, but if you want to jump ahead a bit, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm messing up your neat order and timeline in this podcast. I'm just going to throw it out the window. All right.
It's okay.
Okay.
Like, you're implying that we had order in this podcast at any point, and no.
Just always remember, our tagline is unprofessional and debatably amusing.
There we go. All right, sounds good. Well, I'll just help exacerbate that a little bit more. All right, so Gribble. I'm trying not to go through all of my thoughts about him at once, but I'll just start with the scene that I'm sure you guys are thinking about. Hopefully, maybe our brains are aligned here. Is the scene when he was in Hiccups' house was just such a good villain moment. Oh yes.
Yeah. And this is the thing, because when I think we also talked about one point, I'm not sure, and I think Haddock was even in that episode, I'm not sure, that people's instinct was like, oh, so this is Vigo in the movies, and people like had that mindset. But then this scene happens, and it's like, this is a much more of a Hiccup replica than Vigo, because Vigo didn't have Hiccup sassiness. Grimille has Hiccup sassiness. Like when he just sits in Stoic's chair and he goes, Chief Hiccup, or Chief Hiccup. That's so great. That's great. I love it.
It was great, and I love the whole atmosphere of what it does, because it's a legitimately intimidating power move moment where he's in Hiccup's freaking house, and he's acting like he owns the place. He's, sitting in the chair, he's shooting at what we think is Toothless, and he's just taking over, and he's calm. He's alone, he's enshrouded in darkness. It's just this legitimately intimidating moment where he's barging into Hiccup's life. Which, I mean, I guess that's the entire point of who Grimille is he's barging into Hiccup's life, Hiccup's comfort, Hiccup's safety, and this is the moment where we really see that very top-notch villain moment.
Agreed. I would go so far as to say, like, this is the real introduction to our villain. Everything before this was like, okay, he's good, but this is where we really see, okay, this is who he is and what he's really capable of. Because up to this point, like, oh, well, he's a good hunter. Okay. This is where you find out, okay, no, he's a really good hunter, but he's more than that. Like, this is a dude who, he's hunted dragons his entire life. He's good at what he does, and he knows he's good at what he does. And this is his way of showing it. And Night
Furies, no less.
Mm-hmm. So, like, this is his way of showing it, and I think it's the best way possible they could have chosen to show it.
Yeah, so I think, again, I agree with Haddock. This is Grimille's best scene. And also, I do like that it's not just Grimille being a better, like, Hiccup does have a good back and forward with him. Like, he tells them, we've been through much war. So, like, and Grimille tells them, oh, you will. And then Hiccup tells them, Stoic the Vest changed his mind. Look where that led them. I like, again, kind of like with Vigo. He had this great back and forth with Vigo, but here it even works. It works even better, honestly.
It does work very well. I mean, unfortunately, I missed a little bit of the conversation. My computer glitched on you, but so I'm sorry if I repeat things. But while there's a really cool and interesting and unique dynamic with Grimille, as you're pointing out, as we're comparing him with Vigo, I do think there's some merit to the conversation to be had that this is more on a critical side, is Grimille really doesn't bring anything new conceptually to the Dragons universe. He's a very typical villain, especially for the things that we get in the TV show. We have this constant theme of a main male war-oriented villain who's wanting to go one-on-one with Hiccup to get the Night Fury, often for hunting or, power-related reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. It didn't make me hate seeing him on screen, but it was something to, process through about, he's very in line with what we've done before.
Yeah. And, there is a scene before that, which I do want to point out because it's a nice, reference to people who did watch Race to the Edge, where Eret does recognize Grimille's arrow, where Hiccup picks up in the woods when they go look for the Light Fury. And, I do like that Eret knows this is Grimille, because, they're both hunters that probably met at one point. I like that. And also, so again, Hiccup has that moment where he tells her, we've dealt with these kind of people before. And again, this is just a quick, small reference, which that the people who didn't watch the show probably won't get, but it's not going to ruin their film. But us who watch the show, it's a nice little callback. I like that. It's like the right balance.
Yeah, they did a good job with callbacks. Even the fact that they brought up Gift of the Night Fury again, me jumping out of order chronology, to discuss about, Toothless having a tail fin that wasn't operated by Hiccup. They straight out admitted, oh yeah, this has been done before. Gift of the Night Fury reference.
Mm-hmm. And I think pretty much when really jumping the gun here, before the climax, there's the point where Hiccup tells Astrid, like, every time I feel like I'm no less of a screw up than before I'm in Toothless. And Hiccup had most of these moments in the show.
That is true. I mean, you definitely do get it in the trilogy, but the show, you're right.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about that.
So I do like how they represent the rest to the edge here. Both, again, we said about in character interactions, which is my favorite thing in the world, and then there are these little callbacks, which, again, if you watch the show, great. If not, you can fill in the blanks. It's not like they're telling you and not showing you stuff.
Yeah, and lots of the callbacks are very small. For instance, those were fireworms in the Hidden World, weren't those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and those were previously a TV show only species.
Yep. You see, Namora, that's how you do it. Sorry, I'm angry about another third installment, which just came out.
More like 12th, but anyways.
There's you know what I mean. Anyway, but let's move on. Let's go a bit back. We have the Light Fury. Actually, one more thing: the Stoic and the Stoic flashback scene, first out of two, wonderful. I love it.
Maybe we should just talk about those in general by topic, because topic I think is going to be the best way for us to continue this conversation forward for honestly the rest of the Hidden World. Those were good scenes. I really appreciated those, especially showing Stoic's sensitive side. It's very in line with what we know of him from the first two films, plus Gift of the Night Fury and so forth. But it's just that extra tenderness of seeing a father with a small child and crying over missing Valka and talking about what it is to go through loss, which of course relates to the overall theme of How to Train Your Dragon 3. I feel like these flashbacks were much more smoothly incorporated and natural feeling than in How to Train Your Dragon 2, as much as I love How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Yeah, and I do like in the second conversation where they do talk about that theme of letting go about stuff. And it felt really natural. Like when how would a small child ask his father about his mom not being there? Are you going to get us a new mom? I like that. It sounded like a kid, and they actually got like. Can you imagine if J. Baruchel voiced that this younger Hiccup?
No, don't. No, I'm not trying to imagine that. No, that was great. And the dialogue there, I think, was some of its best, because also it wasn't just Hiccup sounding like a kid, which was, very good kid dialogue, which is so rare, but it was how Stoic explained things to a kid. He gave the information about what it means to feel lost, but giving it in a way that's understandable for a small child. And I really liked how they did that.
And I do like it as well that again, this is also true to the show for the most part, that whenever we saw Stoic and Hiccup in the movies, it was always like Stoic either being mad at Hiccup or being so happy with Hiccup. We never really got to say, maybe in Night Fury a bit, but it was that he's trying to actually calm him down and explain to him stuff. We don't, again, Gift of the Night Fury aside at one point, we never really got it. So, and it's nice to hear Stoic with Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler has this really nice soothing voice, when he does those scenes. Like I think I said it before. I want this guy to read me a bedtime story after this, and and so again, just really fun, really great way. Like it's great. That's what I'm trying to say. I can talk. It's so great.
Fair enough.
Yeah, amen. Those were very, very good scenes.
So should we finally talk about the Light Fury?
Yes, and what a topic she shall be.
Okay, so let's quick thoughts out. Do we like her? Do we not like her? I personally, I really like her.
Hater.
So, I am mixed on her. I like her personality. I like some of the concept of what she represents. It's how it gets presented in the film that I have qualms about, and this will actually get into a very long analysis, including but not limited to the Light Fury, about the things that I was sort of hesitant on. I'll wait on that, but in short, liked her as a character, wasn't sold on what they did with her.
Okay, Wolf.
Terrible. Hated her.
And that was Wolf's review. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
The design, I said it before, I think when we've talked about like the trailer, when we first saw the Light Fury and some of the trailers and stuff, beautiful design. I don't think there's a better design you could have come up with. I think it really works. And seeing her in the scenes that we saw her in, I think it was done well. I don't think there's anything I can say that, as of right now, a first time viewing, I don't think there's anything I can say that I outright hated right away or disliked. I will say that I don't know. It's what I can give you right now. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, but overall, I like her design because people said simpler toothless. Yeah, what else would you expect it to be on people? It's you know, but I do like her. Like Haddock said, I like her personality, and like that. I was sure from the trailers that they were gonna do like, oh, Toothless is going to be the loser and she's going to be like the popular girl, which I wasn't a big fan of. But they didn't really do that. It just like they just, you know, maybe some people can read into it like that, but this what did I want to say? I had a point. That it felt more like, yeah, Toothless spent more time among humans, where she spent more time in the wild. So it's just it's just like different people getting to interact and you know, study each other. That's how I saw it, and I can understand how people will read into what I said before, but it doesn't seem like, because she doesn't seem to hate him. She hates Hiccup, not Toothless necessarily, and Toothless does kind of puts up bounds, like when he draws her and she steps on the drawing. He growls at her, like it's like, okay, I did something for you, but don't push your luck here. You're going to destroy my art.
But I mean, she growls back, and he's immediately like, okay. So
yeah, true.
I mean, I get
First
where you're.
movie fallout.
I do get where you're coming from, right? Like, it definitely, I think it's intended to feel like fish out of water. Thinking about it and kind of going back through some of my thoughts, I think I like her design, but I think the thing I liked about the Light Fury more was how Toothless acted during that, and not so much her. Her, I could take or leave. Being honest, I think if you put another female dragon in the same spot, it's not going to change a lot in terms of how she acts, but I think Toothless is the big sell there. Like, I loved seeing the joke of, okay, we're having Toothless basically kind of try out his moves on his shadow, and he's literally licking a stone that's his shadow. in trying to practice in how he's going to get with the Light Fury. It's like, okay, that's adorable. I love that. And I had fun watching that. That was a good moment.
Agreed.
I noticed most of the audience liked that. That was actually one of my biggest negatives.
Really?
Sorry.
Okay, sure.
Oh,
Share.
yeah. Oh goodness.
That's
yeah, no.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Go ahead.
Oh goodness. Okay, I will try to be brief. So it combines both what you've been saying, Wolf, and what you also said, HC. So the idea of, you know, both Toothless and the Light Fury are trying to understand each other, and Toothless does have the human world integrated in him to make it a little bit more awkward. But at the same time, it's very much the case that it's a pretty traditional trope of having the male be more awkward and trying to woo the woman, and that is exactly what we were doing with Hiccup, even as a wingman trying to get it out and Toothless failing. The Light Fury was dorky at times, but it was more so dorky in how she interacted with other people, like knocking Hiccup off of Toothless. It wasn't so much of an interaction between both of them being dorky, more so the Light Fury being confused and Toothless being shown as a flubber, you know, flubbing around. And what more so bothered me was how anthropomorphized these scenes were. They were heavily anthropomorphized in terms of Toothless's actions and facial expressions. For me, showing Toothless licking a wall to try to woo a woman was so human that it took me out of the moment and just felt really awkward. So I didn't like that scene. Lots of people did. That was probably where the theater got the most laughs. But for me, that was where I was the most uncomfortable and completely disagreed with the writing choices here. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm probably going to be the negative Nancy in most of this podcast.
Fair enough.
I didn't think of it that way, but I mean, it does make sense. Like, it's definitely a little bit weird to see this dragon who is still a dragon, who is still, you know, maybe he's trained, but he's still very much a dragon, very much wild, from the wild, very much grew up in the wild for most of his life. You know, it's not like he's been with Hiccup for longer than it is that he grew up in the wild. So it's very much, it is a little bit weird to see all of a sudden him act this human. And I guess and I'm sure people will make the argument, right, that, oh, well, he's been around Hiccup and that's where he picked it up from. But it definitely does feel like this was, the writers wanted to write this out as a joke and not so much this is how Toothless might or should be acting in this scene. This is very much, hey, this is funny, people are going to laugh at this. And they did, I did. And like I said, I still enjoyed it, but I can see where you're coming from in saying that this feels off and this doesn't feel great.
Yeah, agreed.
And it definitely feels like it feels like it was written for the joke and less for the character.
It also, I think, there's another aspect to it beyond the joke, is the fact that there's a lot of scenes that are just Toothless and the Light Fury. And so the animators wanted to try to make these personable enough to audiences that they could understand these two scenes without words. So they made Toothless a lot more human. But I still don't think that any of that was necessary. We could have had a lot of scenes where, I mean, we fell in love with Toothless in the first movie, not because he acted like a human, but because he acted like a different animal. When I fall in love with my pets, I fall in love with them because of their different species characteristics. You know, I loved my guinea pigs because they acted like guinea pigs and so forth. So seeing a dragon become so humanized is just not what I consider the most what's the word I'm trying to use? It's not the most clever writing trick that you could have done. It's falling back on things that we just know the audience will immediately understand and turning Toothless into something that he's not.
Actually, that's a good point, because I was going to bring this up since we're talking about the Light Fury. We do get, right, a scene very similar to the first movie where it's all just, you know, the animation speaking for itself, and it's the Light Fury and Toothless having a similar moment to what Hiccup and Toothless had in the first movie. And they very much focus like, hey, here's the music for this scene, here's the animation for this scene, we're letting that speak for itself. And that's something I praise the first movie for. But I praise the first movie for it because through the animation, you could see and feel and understand what Toothless's thoughts were, even though he wasn't, you know, as you said, anthropomorphized. Like, he didn't act like a human; he acted like a dragon would act. In this scene, and this was something where I wasn't sure if I enjoyed it or not. It felt like I love the fact that you're letting the animation speak for itself. I love the fact that you're doing something that the first movie did, and I think more animated movies should do this and not and try scenes where they are quiet, where it's not talking, where you're letting the animation speak for itself. Because I think we're at a point where animation is that good, you can do that now. But at the same time, I feel like I think this scene would have been way better if we would have seen these dragons acting like dragons and less like humans, because it felt like there was a point where even the Light Fury herself didn't feel like a dragon. She felt very human like in her nature in that scene. It felt like, okay, I you're not having her speak, but I can almost hear the words she would be saying right now to Toothless as a human, and I don't know if that's quite what I want.
Yeah, it was everything down to facial expressions, where they were very human-specific facial expressions that we got from both of them.
Although, you know, there is something the human thing, because again, going back to that scene where Toothless tries to impress her with you know, the human dances, and Hiccup like tells them from the side what to do. There's a point where she does like this sort of kind of like a horse, if you know what I mean. That she has like those she tippy toes in a sense.
Prances around.
Trotting was very horse-like. I loved that gesture. I loved it.
But again, and Toothless doesn't really know what to do with it. But then later on, when they're in the hidden worlds, they're actually doing it with each other, and you know, Toothless seems to like get it. So in a sense, it's kind of interesting that you're saying that they became more human, because it seems like in this, Toothless was actually becoming less of a human and more like an animal as the movie went on.
That's what I think the movie wanted to do, but I feel like it was inconsistent. To again jump out of chronology, when Grimille was threatening to hurt the Light Fury and Toothless called off the dragons, this was like basically, you know, blackmailing, sort of bargaining power moves, and this is human logic through and through. This is not how any animal would act, either Toothless's dragon or Toothless himself. That completely threw me for a loop. So even near the end, we were seeing Toothless make logic decisions that were human.
Well, but you could argue that it did it in the previous films as well.
There was already some aspect to it in the previous films, but it keeps on accumulating more and more each film.
Yeah, I get what you mean. That
feel human. Yeah.
I get what you mean. That, you know, they probably went a bit over this one.
I think it's worth asking, right? Like, is, you know, I think words escape me. The point, right? Like, the big thing I've talked about in the past is, and you know, we thought, and to give a hint into the future of the Berkcast in a future episode, we talked about doing an episode where, you know, hey, let's talk about how the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless has affected Hiccup, but also how it's affected Toothless as well, right? And one of the things I think the movies have, to some degree, especially with the second one and especially the third one, has tried to show that, hey, this relationship between Hiccup and Toothless has affected Toothless. He's taken on more human characteristics, and while that is possible, and you can definitely see that in animals we have in the real world, right? Like, you can see, as you know, an animal spends, as you know, some dog, you know, you can see like how dogs will spend more and more time with humans, and you can see they'll take on a few characteristics of, you know, their master and stuff like that. There's a point you have to ask, though, is it too much? You know, is this too much? Like, is this more than what Toothless would be acting like? You know, sure, you know, we can see funny pictures of a dog sitting like a human because it's funny and we enjoy that and we have a laugh, but, you know, that dog probably spent its entire life with that human, right? With the person it cares and loves about. And not to say that Hiccup and Toothless' relationship is, you know, less caring and that they don't love one another, but, you know, you do have to keep in mind there is a span here that Toothless had away from Hiccup, growing up in the wild, and all of a sudden he's with Hiccup, and they absolutely love and care for one another, but does that mean that we've come to a point now where Toothless would act this human?
Yeah, and it's not just, you know, mimicking actions, but it's also doing thought processes, like, you know,
That's the big
drawing
one,
a
too.
picture. Yeah, because it's something like drawing a picture is, you know, a Toothless imitating Hiccup by, you know, just scribbling in the dust is totally plausible. But Toothless actually drawing a picture.
I do like
is
that.
that plausible?
I do like that bit of a joke when he actually draws the light fury and Hiccup is from the side. Oh, now you can draw. I
liked
that.
Hiccups I liked Hiccups quip. I thought that was funny, but I didn't like the concept of Toothless being able to draw a picture. I've had some people grumpy with me on my blog over the years about the fact where I'm like, you know, Night Furies are intelligent, but this is a human characteristic. I don't want this in Toothless. And it's not that I want to like diminish Toothless into an animal that thinks less. It's that I want to distinguish species as species. Other animals don't draw. We don't see that. Yeah.
Unless
but,
they're
you know,
trained for it for a long time. Like, again, this is something you can see, but it's still not, it's not on the same level as, and it's something that they have to be trained for an exceptional amount of time.
People actually have, I've seen people, I won't say names because I don't remember exactly who that was, but people have said that once Toothless meets the Light Fury, sorry.
Same thing.
Point taken. That once he meets her, he becomes he's becoming less of a human, which people actually didn't like, but that's besides the point. That once Hiccup gives him like his new tail, then it starts to feel like he becomes much more of an animal, because, you know, Hiccup has this belief that he'll come back one day, and people told him, Hiccup, you let him go. You can't really expect him to come back, and it's like wait. So people were asking if Toothless has been reduced to just an animal, and it's like, yeah, that was kind of the point. He is an animal. So I want to ask you about this.
That's the point of the entire movie.
Yeah. So that's something I do want to ask. How did you live in the night to find the Light Fury and eventually go lead the dragons in the hidden world, and supposedly not coming back to check on Hiccup?
Do you want the short 200-page essay or the 5,000-page thesis?
Well, let's go with the essay because we're crunched for time.
Man, I have so many thoughts on this topic. Maybe somebody else should start first.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so the concept of Toothless leaving for the Light Fury from, like, I've seen some people call it a call to the wild, and I really liked the phraseology of that. Interpreting the hidden world as a love story between Toothless and the Light Fury would be inaccurate. I do have some qualms in how they portrayed it, because people will take it away as a love story, and that's another very long essay that I do want to get into, but I'll try to stay more on topic. It is an idea of a call to the wild more than anything, and the Light Fury is
just to cut you, I just want to say that as soon as you said that, I just have like the idea of Ryan Reynolds narrating this as Deadpool and going, you might not know this, but this is not a love story. As like in context with but sorry, just had that picture in my head. Go ahead.
Nope, glad that entertained you. But yeah, so I liked the idea that the Light Fury was sort of the reminder to Toothless of a call to the wild and that sort of thing. That concept was interesting in and of itself, and I think very true. What I don't like is a lot of how it was portrayed on screen, and also while there is something to be said that you can sort of have a light switch on and off. Like, you know, Toothless just sort of light switched off of Hiccup as soon as he started interacting with her. And I think while I understand the point that they were trying to make in the movie regarding that and trying to make it effective through that light switch, I think it actually made it less effective, especially regarding Hiccup and Toothless's relationship. It was so one-sided, and they didn't start with some sort of like where no one goes Hiccup Toothless bonding moment, so that when it got taken away, it just sort of felt, I don't want to say empty, but it was very hard to feel the hick tooth. This is me. I know lots of other people felt the opposite and were crying their eyes out. But for me, the way that the Light Fury was handled in pulling Toothless away to the animal world, as it were, I thought, I guess I would completely rewrite it. I would keep the concept, but rewrite a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Because there is something about what people say that, you know, Hiccup gives Toothless the tail fin and he just goes away and stays in the hidden world, which, you know, this and because, you know, people actually started telling him, you let him go, what did you expect? This doesn't necessarily mean that Toothless would have never come back.
Think of Gift of the Night Fury. He came back despite the biological urges to go to Dragon Island.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, though. We didn't really have the time because, you know, he let him go for like what was it, a day? A day or something. And then they went to fight Grimille, then the entire thing, and then we hear this line, and Hiccup and Astrid are off on Stonefly to find the hidden world themselves. So Toothless wasn't gone for that long, though. So
I think the timeline's vague enough that we don't know.
Yeah,
but maybe
it's hard to ascribe time to it because it feels like the way they put it forward in some of the dialogue, it feels like it's longer than a day. But to us watching and looking at like the time passing through through the sun and stuff like that, it doesn't feel that long. But I think it's supposed to be longer than a day, right? Like again, this franchise has a weird relationship with time and how time passes sometimes.
Here's how I see it. When they get to the new Berk, after they leave when they get to the new Berk, as soon as they get there, Toothless finds the Light Fury again. They have like their first date. And then, like, the morning after, Hiccup already has the new tail set for Toothless, and Toothless flies away. When that happens, Valka goes to spy on Grimille, and then as soon as Toothless leaves, she comes back, and they go and make the attack, and then they found out Ruff is not there, and the entire thing sets in. So it's not maybe exactly said that the movies have different weird relationships with time. I don't know, but it didn't feel like that long of a time has passed. Like if not a day, then maybe two. Like not a week. At least that's what I got.
More than a day, less than a week.
Yeah, there's something to be said that regardless of how much time they intended, it's how it comes off to viewers that really makes a difference. And I think it comes off to all of us in some way of not feeling long because of how they presented it.
Mm-hmm. Could be. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the Toothless Light Fury ship that I want to get across. Because I think we
keep going.
Okay, but for the sake of moving on, I think we covered what people probably came here to listen to.
Yeah, I will have some things to say about the concept of pick friend or pick mate interest. I do want to get into that topic and how they depicted the concept of friendship as being have to let go. But we can talk about that later.
Okay. So, let's just, we are on the topic of romance. Let's talk about Hickstrid for a second. I like the way it was handled. It didn't take that much of a focus, but at the same time, enough of it. And I do like that we finally got to see a wedding at the end. That's my 2 cents.
I loved what they did with Hickstrid. This is the best that Hiccup and Astrid's relationship has been shown in the entire franchise. This is the most time we've seen with the two of them bonding. A lot of emotional connection, both through the silly and the serious. It was a very potent relationship, and you could feel their attachment to each other the entire way through without it sort of feeling like Astrid being a secondary character, just sort of there in a few scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved how more often than not when you see relationships in films, the best way to show that is, hey, let's kiss because that means we're in love, right? This one they never did that. They didn't have to do that. The best we got was a kiss on the cheek, I think, from Hiccup to Astrid before Hiccup left off,
and of course
that was
in the wedding, but that's part of the ceremony.
Yeah, but that's a part of that. Like during the movie, though, before that point, like the most we got was just knowing looks, being playful with one another. The way they showed the relationship was way better in this film, and better than most other films you'll get from, right? And it kind of, in my opinion, it kind of points out how poorly the relationship between Toothless and the Light Fury was handled compared to this.
Well, you also need to take into account that Hiccup and Astrid had like 2 movies and a show dedicated to their relationship.
This is true.
Toothless and the Light Fury had on.
This is true.
But I do agree with you so much about the affection. One of the things that I love, especially about How to Train Your Dragon 2 and 3, is how they show intimacy through the familiarity of physical contact with each other, where it's just, setting a hand on his chest or like grabbing, like that one part in 3 where Hiccup grabbed Astrid and pulled him into his arms. Like, while laughing. Like, that's what a real connection with humans is. It's not this steamy, let's kiss every once in a while sort of thing. It's showing that comfort and familiarity and trust and understanding with each other. And everything from the dialogue to the physical interactions with each other was so on par. And as you said, so rare to actually see on screen in any, animated or live action movie, honestly.
And it even goes into the same thing with, the flashbacks with Stoic and Baby Hiccup, right? You can see it there, like the closeness of that trust of just being able to, like, they show that so well in this movie of, a kid being able to just walk up to their father and just have so much trust into them. But, hey, I'm going to pick you up in my arms and we're just going to talk for a bit. They do that so well in this movie. That trust and that intimacy of just showing how close relationships like that should be and what they should feel like and what they should look like.
Yeah. I was a little bit iffy on the whole thinking about should we get married uncertainties, but I loved how Hiccup and Astrid's dynamics were handled and trusted, and especially like Astrid pep talking Hiccup when he was so, oh my gosh, that scene where he was not doing okay. Good stuff.
Good stuff indeed. So at least that part was handled really well, we can all agree. Going back to Grimille, I want to reiterate something I said. Like, again, I like the idea behind them. I like some of the execution. I like how, again, when the Berkians leave Berk and he actually figures out their flight pattern based on his knowledge of the Night Furies. That's great. Like, Vigo couldn't do this. So this is his thing. This is Grimille doing his thing. Love that. But then we get to, like, after Toothless leaves and they go attack his fortress, there's the point where he tells Hiccup, when I encountered the Night Fury when I was a boy, I killed him. Dead in his tracks. And it's like, okay, cool. That's something that no other villain had in common with Hiccup, actually encountered in the Night Fury. And there's also the thing that that made him a hero in his village and stuff. Like, he's what Hiccup could have become. So you know what? Great, good on you. One problem: could we actually see that? Because I really wanted to see that. I wanted a show don't tell moment for this.
Oh yeah, I agree. That would have been cool. That whole comment about, I killed the Night Fury and became a hero in my village, and a lot of how Grimille was handled, you could tell, was a repurposing of what would have been Drago continuation material.
Yes.
For me, I'm not saying this as a criticism. I'm saying this as a fascination point. is you could tell this was eventually going to be Drago's characterization and development, but instead they decided not to make How to Train Your Dragon 2 Part 2 and create a new villain. And I think they did a good job repurposing the material. So you can still see the origin points in it. You can still see where Drago got into Grimille. But they did a cool job with making a different character.
And we talked about this in that one episode we did about where Drago is going to be. That it does kind of feel like that we suddenly had this entire thing of Grimille being the killer of all Night Furies, which is his reason to go after Hiccup and Toothless. While if you had Drago there, you kind of have the motivation of revenge, and you could cut it out. So again, I can see where.
Hello. Ah, okay. My connection is dying if you can hear me, so.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't hear a word you're saying. Let me leave and come back.
Okay, try it now.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, okay. You're good.
Yeah.
All right, my connection seems to be better as of right now. Let's hope it stays.
Okay.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay. So you were assigned to save?
I did not hear a word you said earlier. You broke up really badly for me.
Oh.
Same for me as well.
Okay, so what I said is that we talked about this in a previous episode, that you could kind of tell that Grimille was like, they made him the killer of all Night Furies because he needed a reason to go after Hiccup and Toothless. And if you had Drago there coming back, they will already have the motivation of revenge there. So you could kind of see the points where it was supposed to be Drago, but they had to change it up because they decided to go with a different villain. But for which one of the two I prefer, I still need to think about it.
I mean, I would have loved to see Drago in his full potential because he had so much potential. They just ended up not utilizing it. So I think for me, it's difficult not only to pick which I liked better, but also compare it between the actualization and the potential. Because they actualized Grimille better, I would say. Because they knew what they were going to do with him. Whereas Drago, plans changed.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Grimille and Drago and similarities, moving on to the end, kind of the end, in the final climax, I did like the fact that, one, I love the climax in itself. The climax is big, bombastic. Like, this is the climax this franchise needed. Everyone gets a point to shine and stuff, and then we get to the final showdown, which is Hiccup and Toothless trying to rescue the Light Fury from Grimille. And there's this chase scene and stuff, and then there's Hiccup and Grimille fighting one-on-one on the Light Fury's back, and Hiccup tells that the Light Fury saved Toothless, who's been hit with an arrow, and he sacrifices himself. Great moment, love this so much. And then there's the entire thing that, how did Grimille die? He fell into the water after the Light Fury saved Hiccup. So it's like, how the Giant Dragon villains just aquaphobic and can't swim? Because that's the exact same thing that happened with Drago.
That is funny to think about, yeah. But I agree with you. That was such a great moment. Like, save him, and then the let go, the sound editing with the quiet, just making it feel surreal. Like, that was the moment where I was just like, ooh, and, held my breath a little bit because that was just so effectively done. I would have liked it to be about 2 seconds longer before the Light Fury caught Hiccup, but that was such a cool moment.
Yeah. And so yeah, but again, so I like Grimille, but at the same time, I feel like something was missing, and that something was the part where we talk about his backstory. That was the point that was missing for me.
Yeah, for me, I feel like Grimille and the generals weren't as fleshed out in their motivations, and where they're placed in the world, honestly, is they're just sort of floating in this world.
Yeah, and you know there is like a quick travel line when when Grimille encounters them at the beginning, and he tells them, "Oh, so he mentions Drago for a split, for like a split second." And so,
Yeah.
and
I want to point out your mistake there. I think it's actually kind of pertinent, mistaking Grimille for Vigo, because I think that's an interesting mistake to make, because at the same time, like, Vigo definitely had a sense of where he belonged in the world when you watched Race to the Edge, right? When you watched Race to the Edge, when you saw Vigo, the way he acted, like everything he did, it felt like this is who he is, this is where he belongs. He has a sense of place in this world. Grimmel's missing that somewhat, and as Haddock said, so are the warlords too. Like, they don't feel like they belong, and I think, you know, looking at how they did Drago in the last film, right? Like, I think the big thing that for him, like, he definitely felt like, okay, this is who he is in this world. This is where he belongs. He has a sense of place, right? Even though we didn't know a ton about him at the time, he definitely felt like he had a sense of place. And so for Grimille and the warlords to feel like that, I think, you know, in their focus on like Astrid and Tuffnut and Roughnut and Snotlout and Fishlegs, I think we did kind of lose some focus on other characters like our villains, right? Because you can definitely feel, like I said before, you can feel the relationship between the Dragon Riders a lot more in this movie than you can in any of the past movies, and I think because they did that focus, we definitely lost some focus elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think one of the reasons why the villains feel like they're floating around is we don't see the impact of the environment around them. With Drago, we saw him killing chieftains and taking over tribes and enslaving people like dragon trappers to get things for him. He was very much a threat within the larger world. Grimble allegedly, had this whole all these forces and stuff, with his, trained dragons, and he was interacting with warlords who would presumably have a lot of people. But we don't really do much with their armies. They're just sort of there. We don't know what they're conquering. We don't know why they're conquering. They're just a army that's not actually making a threat, except when it suddenly decides to target Berk.
And the big thing, right, like, is we're told what Grimmel's done within this world. We're not shown it, and I get that it would be kind of, it may not necessarily fit to show another flashback that's of Grimille doing something in the past, but maybe that would have helped somewhat to really make him feel like, okay, this is what he's done within this world. Like, he has killed all of the Night Furies except for one, possibly, and that is his place in this world, right? I think if we could have seen something of that past in some way, shape, or form, it maybe would have set to like, okay, this is who he is now.
Or even something in the present. Like, suppose that before the Berk people found the new Berk Island, they go to another place and they see it being decimated because Grimmel's after them, or, something. There would have been ways to show
they found
a
Dragon's
threat
Age
in this world. Yeah. There would have been a way to show it in the present or in a flashback, I think.
Yeah, there could have been a better way to show it, I think. It could, because again, Drago was kind of the same thing, that, we were told about his backstory, that he saw his entire family and village taken away from him by the dragons, but it's like, we are told, we're not shown. Can we please see that?
That part I was fine with Drago saying it, because we did see Drago making a lot of decimation in the world around him currently. So that one part of his backstory, I can be like, that's understanding his motivation. And we still get that concrete sense of why Drago's a danger and why he's doing those things, because of his actions in the film and destroying people around him and, freaking Eret out, etc., as it were. I mean, we see the brand on Eret, we see him, almost executing our dragon riders, etc.
Okay. So we kind of covered the Grimille. I'm trying to think. The Hidden World itself, I won't lie, for a movie titled The Hidden World, I would have liked to see more of it because we don't really get there until the end. And I get it, it's supposed to be a search for it and everything, but still a bit more because also we saw a lot of those moments in the trailer. But for the Hidden World itself, one looks gorgeous. Let's get this out of the way. Like the entire movie looks gorgeous, but the colors and stuff, so good. And again, I do like how this is kind of a reverse scene from the Red Death's nest in the first movie, that it's Hiccup and Astrid on the back of Toothless, and here it's Astrid and Hiccup on the back of Stonefly. And this is kind of again like they're hiding, and then them being allotted to be in the place kind of causes this mayhem to go down. Only this time, Toothless is the king. Toothless is the leader of all these dragons. Which
that's a cool parallel. I hadn't thought of that.
I really like that, and also again, Drago's Bewilderbeast being there. Dean has confirmed that this was his way of showing that every dragon is redeemable. What do you think about that?
I mean, I like the fact that we got to see what happened to the Bewilderbeast. We're like, oh, yay, you're happy. I also agree with you on the fact that the title for the Hidden World was misleading. Even though the entire movie is about Hiccup wanting to find the Hidden World, yada yada, we only see it for a few minutes. But instead of showing more of it, I like the fact that we only got a little glimpse of it to show that it is unattainable to humans. If we'd had more time in there, then it would have taken away that sense of unattainability, both for our characters and for us audience members. We're not supposed to be able to attain it either. So I think they should have just called it How to Train Your Dragon 3, and that would have solved the problem.
Yeah. Also, one of the things, this is a nitpick on my part, but we see two other Light Furies in the Hidden World, which implies that they are different species than the Night Fury. So, but if that's the case, why does Grimille treat them as the same species?
It could be one of those closely related species or subspecies things where, well, I mean, obviously they're very closely related since they are still reproductively having fun. So, you know, I mean, I think it's fine.
Yeah, like I said, it's a
interesting that
nitpick.
it wasn't talked about lore-wise in the movie.
Again, like I said, it's a nitpick on my part, but a bit more clarity wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, that's
okay.
fair.
That's just me though. But anyway, so Toothless takes Hiccup and Astrid out of the Hidden World, and you know, I like the idea that we can kind of see them being torn apart a bit. Like, you know, in the second movie, it was when Toothless killed Stoic under control of the Bewilderbeast, and in this one, it's kind of the opposite, which is Hiccup can't really let Toothless go, but this is the point where he realized that Toothless might be actually better on his own, leading his species. Which again, cool idea, like it, but I think again, if we had just a few more minutes to establish this more, because again, it felt a bit rushed.
I think that it would have been better established with showing more Hicktooth struggles throughout the rest of the movie. We see Hiccup worrying over a lot, but there were several times where I think they could have done more, such as when Hiccup was giving Toothless the tail, or showing Toothless's thought processes. I would have liked to see more of Toothless interacting with Hiccup. I think that might have helped with that sense of the scene feeling rushed as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we pretty much covered everything. Okay. One last thing I will say: the scene where after Grimille captures Tuffnut and she starts annoying him. You know, so this scene is probably the best Tuffnut moment of all time. I love this.
Yes, I loved
Agreed.
it. I saw one person complaining that it was like, oh, Tuffnut was so dumb. She's never been dumb. I'm like, no. Did you see that gleam in her eyes? She knew what she was doing.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. She knew what she was doing. She wasn't just blabbering. She knew that it didn't work exactly as she planned, but
I mean, it kind of shows like Grimille was more clever than what she was, but she still was being clever in that scene. Like that was still like
Exactly.
her form of cleverness. That was her thinking she was being clever. She just got outsmarted by Grimille, who was more clever than her. That happens. It's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean she's dumb. It just means he's a little bit more clever.
I did like how Hiccup asked her if she was being followed, and she's like, "I never look back." I don't know. That really made me laugh for some reason. And
yeah.
And also, because we have to say something controversial, I'm just gonna say it. In this movie specifically, Tuffnut is hotter than Astrid. There, said it. Do whatever the hell you want with
I've
it.
thought it the entire trilogy. I've thought it the entire trilogy. Thank you. Thank you. High five.
Yeah, I'm high-fiving you through my phone screen.
Same.
Did you get it?
Woo, okay. High five.
Okay. There you go. That's the hot take of this episode. Tuffnut is hotter than Astrid. Fight me.
We'll be on this battle together.
Okay, good. So the two of us against all the internet. Yeah, I like those odds. Sure.
Yep.
Anyway, so I think we pretty much covered everything except for the one thing we knew we were going to keep for the end. The end.
True. I mean, there are other things that I could talk about as far as the theme of the movie itself, if you guys want to talk about that, but we don't have to. We don't have to cover everything about the hidden world.
Yeah, because let's say we do need some extra topics for future episodes. We can't, you know what I mean?
There's one question.
Yeah, and here, I can also do a quick, stupid self-advertisement. I will be talking for a very long time on analyses on my blog, Kingofthewilderwest, about the themes of How to Train Your Dragon 3 and whether or not I think that they were effectively presented. If you're interested, I won't be writing it in a negative light, don't worry, but I'll be writing it in a more of objective reflection of, questioning but not hating on it. So yeah, I can do that later.
You're really ruining the flow of the podcast. We saved the shilling for the last bit. Jeez.
So sorry.
But you'll find a link to which in the description of the video, by the way.
Yeah, I approve it though. So
absolutely. Yeah. There is one question I'd like to throw to two of you. There was a lot of jokes, it felt like, in the third film, to me anyways. It felt like even more so than the second and the first. And so a question I'd like to throw to two of you before we jump straight into the end is, do you think the third movie played harder on the jokes and played more into the jokes than the second or first film did?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Me, yes and no. Mostly, no. I think part of it's also the familiarity thing. Is we're not going to be laughing as much at the first two movies' jokes because we're familiar with them. When something's novel, we're going to be laughing more and noticing the humor more. I do think there's a slightly subtly different brand of humor in the third movie, but I don't think that was bad. No, and overall, I think the humor was well placed. There was just one or few times where I wouldn't have put a joke in there to keep a mood.
Oh, yeah, sure. Agreed. Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
What were you thinking since you asked this? What was going on in your head?
Again, I'm not trying to say the jokes were bad or that they were entirely mistimed or that there was too many of them. I think it felt to me like, I suppose because we focused on some of the side characters more and we had more of the kind of back and forth between a lot of the dragon riders, it felt like we had a lot more humor going. And I think in part that does help a lot to establish like this is a group of friends having fun and that they are still very young, that they are still kind of growing up, and so they're going to see things as a bit more of a joke than say an older adult will. Because when we switched over to Gobber, when we switched to especially Valka or Aerith, things definitely felt like this is less of a joke. And then when we get to, the Dragon Riders, our group of riders, our main group, things start to feel like a bit more of a joke. Like we have the joke with Tuffnut and his beard, quote unquote. And then we go to Snarlout burning his butt all the time and like not having his armor completely set up. And then we go to the joke with Toothless, kind of making out with himself, quote unquote. And then again, like you see this quite often. Like there's just a lot of jokes going back and forth between this group, and it felt
Got a point.
it felt to me like you're leaning a bit more heavy into this, and I don't hate it. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't find it a bad thing. It's just an interesting thing I picked up. Like the third film felt, because of that, and again, I think this might change as I've watched it more and have grown more familiar with it. The third film felt more. It felt less serious than the past two films did.
Yeah, I think that it could have lent a bit more seriousness in the threat range. So maybe drop a few moments of the humor, as entertaining and fun as they were, and do a little bit more establishing that sense of this is the threat and Hiccup can't keep running away.
Yeah.
I would have liked a little bit more on that balance.
Yeah, thinking about it, it does bring up the mind of kind of a road trip film almost.
Yeah, there's something here actually. Yeah.
It'll be interesting
Yeah.
to go back through other watches, and there's a movie that comes to mind, and I think it's what's the name of it? I wish I could remember it, but it's that movie where they go on the trip where it's a bunch of college guys and one dude's girlfriend moves to a completely different college across the country and they go to visit her, and it's a road trip film. It brought up that in a mind a little bit.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what movie you're talking about, but I want to watch it.
I'll have to look it up. It's not a great movie. It's very much like this is a comedy movie, and it's kind of meh, if I remember. But some good comedy, but overall kind of a meh movie, if I could remember the name of it. But it kind of brought that up into mind a little bit, where we're traveling to find this place, but we're also kind of Toothless's girlfriend is in this place, and we're traveling to that place, and it definitely felt a bit of a road trip movie almost in some ways. But again,
which is interesting because
So, the end.
Sure.
Yeah, let's go to the end before we talk 3 more hours on this movie.
Yeah, we honestly could. There's a lot to talk about, but again, we need to kind of wrap it up, and 2, we also want to keep topics for future episodes because no, the Berkcast is not ending after this. Forget it. We are in, we're in for the long run. But anyway, what did I want to say? So the end. First of all, yeah.
The name of the film I was thinking of literally is just Road Trip. Came out in 2000.
Oh.
So that's probably why I couldn't remember the name of it. But yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah, movie, but
I guess it stays true to the title. But anyway, what was I supposed to say? Oh yeah. So we get to the ending. So again, our villain falls into the water because that's what all How to Train Your Dragon villains in the films at least do. And
wait. No. I'm thinking, wasn't Riker also a water?
Oh yeah, Riker. We have Riker. You know something? Johan is frozen, so I guess you could say it counts.
That counts. Different solid state, but it's water. Yep. Here we go.
And you know something? We don't really know how Drago killed Krogan. So for all we know, he drowned him. For all we know.
Conspiracy theory, all of them are secretly water.
Yeah. But hey, that's just a theory.
No.
A film theory. Okay.
I will server mute you.
That's why I stopped. I didn't finish the entire sentence. But let's go over to the ending. So we get the final goodbye of Hiccup and Toothless, and everyone's dragons with each other. In my opinion, again, I didn't really feel sad at the start of it because I knew this was going in this direction. I knew this was coming. But for some reason, the moment Toothless stands up and gives Hiccup a hug, broke. And I didn't get better after that. But I do like also that, you know, at least in the movies, because Race to the Edge kind of goes against that idea. But the one time Hiccup says "I love you" to someone is to Toothless, and
Yay, that was good. I'm
yeah,
glad
that
they did that.
yeah, that's so good. And again, there's the entire thing. I've seen people bring it up, shout out to Rush, who's not here sadly. He had some things to take care of, but he brought up that Hiccup doesn't have the prosthetic leg in that scene, and this is like, yeah, he's literally standing on his own, and like this is the last thing that really connected them to Toothless, and the reverse hand thing is also there. That really, again, just a powerful moment in my opinion. Even if you don't necessarily cry, there's a lot of good stuff in it. And seeing the other, and I actually really got emotional when Astrid was taking off Stonefly's saddle. That was really sad.
There's certainly a whole lot of stuff in there. I didn't get pulled into the moment. I do think it also has to do with the fact that, as you pointed out, we've known about this is going to happen for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
We knew they were going to separate. So I really like the symbolism. As yeah, Rush pointed out some really cool things, and that's something I appreciate. I love the reverse hand thing. I love the symbolic concepts in that scene. So I'm looking forward to watching it a second time and seeing if, now that I can see those moments, I'll appreciate it more.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, like, I kind of enjoyed, like, because it satisfies the nitpicker in me, where all the dragons left. How are they going to get back to Berk? They didn't. They literally just, this is where they live now, in this new island. I kind of enjoyed that, because, like, we kind of fast forward a bit, and we see, like, they've made a home for themselves here now. Like, I kind of enjoyed that.
That was cool.
Like, that was a nice little nod
cool.
to things like, hey, all the dragons left. How are they going to get back to Berk? You could easily nitpick this. Oh, don't need to. They literally just live here now. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did like that. And also, having that time skip forward to seeing what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
and they
was
still
like,
made
that's cool.
They still made a Stoic statue.
Mm-hmm. That was good.
Mm-hmm. So that's great. Like we talked about the wedding earlier, but I do want to say something that we did. Hedek wasn't with us for this, but Wolf maybe remembers that a few episodes ago we did a reading of like my version of it. Like I wrote a fan fiction years ago about what I think this scene is going to be like, and I gotta say, for the most part, it's not accurate. Okay, I'll admit right now. Like, but some parts in that fanfiction actually, the one part I'm so happy that I got right is that when the thing that makes all dragons leave is that after Hiccup and Toothless says their final goodbyes to each other, Toothless just lets out like this mighty roar that makes every other dragon go, start flying. So I'm going to take this as my small win. I said this was going to happen. I was right about one thing, damn it. My
Celebrate
small victory.
it, yes.
Yeah.
Celebrate that small victory. Yeah, and I actually I didn't predict it all too, but my small victory is that, I suspected that it would deal with the fact that humans and dragons lived in an incompatible world, and that the dragons needed to leave to be safe. I figured that they were going to tap a little bit into the book themes, while also digging into like what we saw with Drago, where he wasn't treating the dragons safe. So I was really pleased to see that moment. I was like, yes, I got that right.
Huzzah for small victories.
Small victory, yes.
Okay, so now the final thing. The 10 years later epilogue.
Yes.
One, I so like the fact that Hiccup looks like Mysterio.
Okay.
For those who don't get the joke, is because everyone says that with the beard he looks like Jack Gyllenhaal, and Jack Gyllenhaal is playing Mysterio in the new Spider-Man movie. That's my yeah, I know, but anyway, so yeah, but we see Hiccup with a beard, the beard that everyone waited for.
Yes. Yes.
victory.
Yeah.
Speaking of small victories again.
And we see their kids who I know Christina Cowell confirmed their names on Twitter. I don't remember the names. I
It was
just
like
remember.
Zephyr and Nifnut or something. I don't remember.
I just,
Look it up,
I do
look it up.
remember I just remember like I was talking to a few people on the Valhalla server on Discord about this, where we just had this idea of like Hiccup having all of these different names on the wall, and Astrid like blindly throwing her X, and whatever she hit, that was the name they chose for each kid. So.
That's good.
Leffy, if you're listening to this, I want that comic. You said you're making a comic. I want that comic. No pressure or anything. Just, I want that. I want that comic. But anyways, so I do I don't know. I've read a few fan fictions where we saw like some Hiccup kids, Hiccup and Astrid kids, and they made like the girl the brunette and the boy the blonde one, kind of a role reversal of the parents. So, but it was cute to see. I really like the design and the animation on the daughter, actually.
They were cute. I mean, we can talk about the stereotypical way of designing kids all we want. They were cute, and there was something so precious and wonderful to me seeing Hiccup and Astrid as parents. That was just such a delight.
Yeah, but again, like I said, I like the kids, especially something about the daughter really stuck out to me. Like I love the animation on her face when she sees I don't know, something about this really caught me. I don't know what.
Oh, I've always wanted Hiccup with an eldest daughter, and just seeing that. I mean, we knew the books that I won't say anything. But I was just really happy to see her, and just also doing that whole callback of Hiccup and Toothless visiting each other. I was sort of like, you have to do that. They're gonna revisit each other, and so them actually showing it, and Hiccup introducing his kids introducing the next generation to dragons, all the while quoting the book intro was.
Yeah,
so
I heard that this was apparently a one.
It was word per word at the start, and I was hoping for this. And this was the part where I was flailing in the theater, was that there were dragons when I was a boy. There were great grim sky dragons that nestled on the cliff top like gigantic scaly birds, small brown scuttly dragon. I won't quote the whole thing, but just hearing that was the most wonderful thing ever, because it's what started the How to Train Your Dragon books. It's how the How to Train Your Dragon books end up cycling around. And now we've gotten to the point that it's how it ends the DreamWorks franchise as well. And that's so cool. And just, I love it.
The other thing I'll say about the ending is that, kind of to bring my best friend sent me like today that she opened Instagram and saw like a spoiler that they're making pop figures of the Night Fury babies. What did you think of those?
If it's the pop vinyl figures, meh, because most pop vinyl figures don't look great.
I'm talking about the characters, Wolf, not the pop figures.
No, let's talk for 10 more minutes on pop figures. That sounds like a good use of podcast time.
I have 3. These are probably the only 3 I'll ever own because I need money to afford other stuff.
They're not my personal thing, but I caved in on the Voltron and Full Metal Alchemist ones. Anyway.
Right. I have a Spider-Man Homecoming one, a Sonic one with a Chaos Emerald, and Crash Bandicoot. These are the 3 I own.
Of course.
Not sure if there'll be any more. Of course, 2 of them are of course. The third one might surprise some. But anyway, so I like the Fury babies.
For me, I know people have been wanting Night Fury babies since Toothless first entered existence in the DreamWorks franchise. For me, I'm not much of a baby person, so for me, I can take and leave them. but I recognize the fan service that they provide, and I'm glad that they gave that for fans.
Okay. And I will say that I really like the idea that, I've seen people debate that if Hiccup and Toothless actually planned this meeting at the end, which I say no, I knew. Like, it was just Hiccup decided to go look for his old friend. And when Toothless sees the ship, he's actually a bit feral. Like, he's like, no humans are coming here. What is this ship? And he doesn't recognize Hiccup at first, which I kind of like because it's been years since he saw them, and with a beard, he looks different and stuff. And then, like, as soon as Hiccup puts his hand up and Toothless just gives it a small sniff, he just changes and he starts bouncing all around and licking Hiccup. I love that so much. This is such an adorable moment.
That was a well done moment. Yeah, I mean, people have seen me. I feel like Toothless was, very doggy in that moment, which people know it's not my personal thing. But I loved the concept of Toothless being, that sort of feral, and then recognizing Hiccup and having that excitement. Like, I was like, good. That was good. That was very good.
Yeah. And also, I wonder how much context America Ferrera had when she had to set the line, "Don't worry, he's not going to eat your father."
Yeah.
And then the movie ends with them their dragons again, and just a perfect place to end this. Like, yes, I'm happy that this ended here. Thank you. It was a blast of a journey. Now to watch that non-canon TV show where the dragons talk, much to Wolf's enjoyment, I guess.
Yeah, no, that was a very good ending to the movie, and I'm so appreciative that they ended it like that. That was very satisfying.
Yeah. Great. So, Wolf, your thoughts on the ending? You didn't talk.
I mean, you two have basically covered everything I could say, right? Like, I think this was well done. I don't think they could have done anything better in terms of ending it. Like, it's definitely, if you want to call it what it is, it's definitely fan service, but I think this is probably one of the best examples of fan service you'll ever get or see.
Yeah. Because
fan service isn't a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's not. It's fan service in the best way, because honestly, how else would fans be happy with this ending? You couldn't really end this with just the goodbye scene and then, or the wedding scene. I don't know. It needed that. I think it needed that touch. It needed that thing to leave you on a good note.
Yeah, I'll even argue, right? Like, I think thinking about the scene and the animation within the scene and how it's handled, I think this is kind of a great callback to the first film with Hiccup and Toothless in the Forbidden Friendship scene. Like, the animation here is just excellent on the kids and their faces and their reactions, on Hiccup and Astrid acting like parents and kind of trying to protect their kids. Toothless being very kind of feral until he immediately recognizes Hiccup. I really enjoyed seeing the kids' faces where the boy, like, Hiccup holds his hand out for him and he immediately just covers his own eyes, like, oh dear, don't eat me. And then Toothless finally touches their hands with his nose and everything, and you see both of their faces immediately light up. Like, it was so well done. Like, that was really enjoyable to see.
So, as much as I think
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll just quickly say that as much as I felt the movie was a bit rushed at points, I do think that this ending at the very least was perfect. Like, I don't have much to say. If I do, it's nitpicking. So the ending, for all intents and purposes, was great, and I love it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I like you mentioning, the forbidden friendship call out. And then it also really had that where no one goes call out from How to Train Your Dragon 2 once the kids get on the dragon, and, Hiccup's tossing his freaking son in the air. I'm like, Hiccup, is that safe?
Actually, something? There's this meme with like a father like throwing his kids up in the air, and it's like you see like the baby really close to the father's hands, like what I see, and then you see that exact same picture, but the kid is like 10 feet high in the air. It's like what his mother sees, and seeing that moment, and that scene specifically, I thought like Astrid is like maybe seeing it. It's like Hiccup, you didn't throw him high enough. Let them live a little. Like in this case, Hiccup would be the panicked one over his son being thrown into the air.
I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah, but that was great. It's just, quick 2 call-outs from the first 2 films and all of the friendship and love and memories that Hiccup and Astrid have had with Stormfly and Toothless, while also leading us to the hope of the next generation. And even though the next generation will live with dragons as myths, it's a happy sense of everybody's going forward in good progress.
Yeah. So I think we pretty much said it all, unless so we closing thoughts, I guess.
Closing thoughts.
Very thankful for this movie. I hope I didn't sound overly critical in this podcast. I tend to actually curb my critical thoughts when I'm online. So some people might be like, "Whoa, Haddock's grumpy." No,
Well,
I was so thankful for this.
No, just because we said some stuff we didn't necessarily like all the way to the end doesn't mean we said we like the movie. We don't hate it by any means. It's a fantastic movie. Just
Absolutely.
like anything, it has problems. Like I also the first 2 also, like the first one, a lot of people say it's one of those technically perfect films, but again you could point out some things in it. No, it doesn't mean it doesn't make it a bad film. So again, we all liked it. We just, there are some stuff we said it could have been a bit better. But
Yeah,
as is, like I said at the end, at the beginning, another perfect trilogy that I'll cherish forever. Din the Blah, on the off chance you're listening to this, thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I cannot say thanks enough for everything that every single creator has done for the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, both the book world and the movie world. I'm so thankful for Cressida. I'm thankful for Chris and Dean. I'm thankful for Art and Doug and what they did with the television shows. We are so blessed, from the comics to the shows to the movies, to just have so many good things.
And also one last thing to point out, that in the credits they show concept art from all the movies. I think even some from the show, which is really great. I like that. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't catch that.
Wolf, did we still steal all of your words, or do you have something to add?
I mean, absolutely right. Like, I don't think we could have gotten a better third movie. All things considered, I think what we got was great. I don't think we could have gotten a better franchise in terms of everything we've gotten from it. Like, I don't think you can do much better than what How to Train Your Dragon has done. And then I think, right, like, well, I'll sit here and say I don't think, from looking at just the 3 movies, I've said before, like, there are some franchises you can look where each film was better than the last. While I don't think How to Train Your Dragon necessarily nails that, that's not a bad thing, right? Because I think each film, while I might say that the first film is still my favorite, and I don't think the second film is as good as the first, it's still very much on par with. Even the third is. Like, they're very much, all of them were consistently great films and were worth my time. And
it's very rare. It's very rare you can say that again.
Yeah.
Even that is a rare thing to achieve. Like, sometimes you go into some franchises where something drops the ball a little bit, right?
Like I love the Back to the Future trilogy. I do, but I admit, like everyone, that the third one is way too different. I don't hate Back to the Future 3. Don't get me wrong, but look, like, if you're marathon all 3 movies, this is the one that feels the most odd, because it's almost like a different genre. Here, everything is consistent. Everything is perfect. Everything just ended. Yeah. Even if some stuff are a bit rough, it left me satisfied. And again, like, as I'm recording this, I'm looking at my desktop, and Hiccup and Toothless are a part of it. My desktop is like a collection of a bunch of characters I like. Hiccup and Toothless are there, and for as much as I'm concerned, they'll be there forever. Because this franchise left an impact on me. And there's a reason why we're here every week talking about it. So
Absolutely. This franchise has done so much for me too.
So unless we have anything else preachy to say, shall we close this?
Go watch the film if you haven't yet.
And if you haven't watched it yet and you're here, you listen to us spoil the entire film. What are you doing?
There have been people asking me about spoilers that haven't seen it yet. I guess some people like to be spoiled.
Yeah. And also, so before we close shop, I do want to say, you see Namora? This is how you do a number 3 right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
With that said, that's been all for this episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts about How to Train a Dragon: The Hidden World? You can tell us all about this in the comment section below, on our Twitter, where we are Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on Tumblr, where we are known as Berkcast Team. If you have a Discord, you can find all of us on the How to Train a Dragon Valhalla Discord server. And Hedek, thanks again for joining us. And where can people find you and your analyses on the interwebs?
I want to thank you so much again for letting me come on here. I always love being with the Berkcast. People can find me, as you said,
We brainwashed her to say that.
No, you can find me on the How to Train Your Dragon Discord. I am most active on Tumblr, though. I am Kingofthewilderwest on Tumblr, and you will be bombarded with How to Train Your Dragon stuff right now. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, feel free to come and say hello to me and bombard my Ask box or just chat. And I always love interacting with fans and just celebrating together the things that we love. So yeah, thank you so much again for letting me be on here and continuing to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful How to Train Your Dragon community.
Yeah. So with all that said, thank you all for listening. Enjoy the movie. Have a fantastic day or night, whatever it is for you, and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.